Hey guys, welcome back to Paradise on Pennies. I'm Heather, and today we're going to talk a little more about food, particularly what types of foods are good to have when you're living on the road as a nomad, or you're living in an off-grid situation, say in a van or camper, truck camper, SUV. So we will be breaking down foods that are good to have along and are particularly important because, say, they last for a while or they store easy. So let's get into it. Obviously, one of the first things to be thinking about are the types of foods that would be best, meaning non-perishables. Anything that's canned goods, will last a really long time. But even some things that are not in canned, but are, say, dry goods, like dried beans and rice, that will also last a good time, and it gives you some good nutrition too. I talked a little bit in another video about storing these foods, so you might want to check that out if you're interested in how to keep the foods. But for instance, these types of containers work really well, and that's what we keep a lot of beans in. If you need some sort of meat or fish, canned tuna also works. I know fish connoisseurs, that wouldn't be your first choice, but when you're living in this situation, you kind of have to make it work. So canned fish still comes in handy. As I mentioned before, nuts make for a really nice treat, and if you have a sweet tooth like me, some chocolate and some nuts will fix that. A couple of other mentionables. Again, anything dried. So dried soup mixes work really well. And while we're thinking about the theme of dried stuff, keep in mind that you might benefit from having something like a dehydrator. But if you're in an off-grid situation like we are, then you're not really going to be able to have a dehydrator, right? Wrong. Actually, I made a solar dehydrator, just a really simple pizza box dehydrator. So check that out if you're interested. I really like tea, and I like having dried fruits and herbs and stuff around. So I started playing around with that, and it came out really well. So I've used it to dry various things, including I found fresh mint, and I made mint tea. That was one of my favorites. This goes without saying, but along with the rices and beans, pasta obviously comes in too. And like I mentioned, any types of dried fruits or fruits that are going to be less perishable. Having said that, now let's talk about the perishables, because it's not true that you can't have any perishables at all. You just have to be thinking about the right kind of perishables. Carrots are a great option. Potatoes are a great option if you want something fresh. These babies last a really long time. Sweet potatoes too. Makes for a really good snack or side. Squash lasts a really long time too. So if you can keep yourself some sort of squash, yellow squashes, zucchinis, and cucumbers actually do okay. The squashes will last a little longer, but then you can also get into a more hard-shelled squash, like spaghetti squash and acorn squash, and those will last even longer. We've had some for quite a long time before we used them. No problem. If you like a lot of flavor in your food too, and you're thinking about fresh stuff, don't forget about garlic. Garlic will last a while, and it makes stuff taste delicious. And with that, if you want seasonings, you could have like dried onions and stuff like that too. But spices are easy to carry along as well. You just have to think about space. Continuing on with our perishable ideas, tomatoes. I like using tomatoes. We like having a lot of stuff like salsa and fresh spaghetti sauce I like making. But tomatoes, well, they'll last a little while, but they go fairly quickly, right? If you do like tomatoes too, the small cherry tomatoes actually last longer than the larger tomatoes, especially like the larger heirloom tomatoes. Those ones tend to get soft really quick. Roma's somewhere in the middle, but yeah, cherry tomatoes will last a heck of a lot longer. So go with those if you're thinking about longevity. And in addition to those veggies, citrus type fruits will also last a really long while. Got a nice hard skin on them. So your oranges, lemons, and limes you can have for a while, and it helps flavor up food as well, or you could even flavor up water. So these are nice to have around. Other skinned fruits like apples, pears, they'll also last a while. We keep apples for a really long time, and you could get them for pretty cheap. I did a whole video where I showed making applesauce with some of them. So if they do start to go bad and they start getting soft spots and you don't want to just eat them, you can make applesauce with them. I put a lot of recipe ideas up on a playlist here on the channel, so if you're interested to kind of see some of the meals we make from these foods, you can check that out. But yeah, that's one really simple idea. Not only if your apples go bad, but also you can get them in discount sections. So that's part of our budgeting strategy too. So yeah, so there's some, you can have fresh vegetables, you can have fresh fruits. You just have to pick the right kind if you're trying to, say, keep them in storage that where you don't have refrigeration. Because that's part of our issue here. We don't have actual refrigeration, and we're off-grid and in the wilderness for long periods of a time. So that's why it matters for us to have these types of foods. And maybe you would really miss those perishables. So here's some ideas if that's the case. For instance, if you're missing cheese, don't forget some people use nutritional yeast as a Parmesan cheese substitute. I think it's a little pricey, but it is an option if you just can't live without the cheese. And in addition, there are like dried cheese snacks and stuff like that out there, and cheese powders that you could get, that you could use if you're going to be in a situation where you really want cheese, but you're, out and about and can't have it fresh. And if you're someone who can't live without milk, around here we actually don't really drink it. But if you want milk, you actually can have that too, because they make them in, like the cardboard containers where they keep longer. And there's also powdered milk you could use. It's literally like a powder, and you add water to it, and it becomes just like milk. There's canned milk, pretty much evaporated milk. So there's a lot of milk options out there too. Maybe even if you don't drink it, you want it for some recipes. So remember, that is an option still. And of course, fruits and veggies get kind of easy too. If you don't have fresh, there's always canned, or like I said, dried, freeze-dried types of fruit and vegetable options out there. So you can have those on the go. And for those of you that are going to miss meat, again, like I mentioned, you might have to go to canned meat, like canned tuna and canned chicken and stuff. There's canned meat out there. You can also do dried meats like jerkies and stuff like that. Eggs actually last a lot longer than you'd think, especially if you're getting, say, farm fresh, not washed eggs. You can keep those for a while. And just go with my original tip from the food storage video that I talked about. Just keep it out of the sun, and you'll be surprised it lasts a very long time. We've been on the road for many, many years, and we do quite a number of eggs in our meals. And we don't have refrigeration, and we keep those eggs, and we've never had a problem. So, oh, also, if you have a sweet tooth like I do, you might want to check out my video about snacking on the road. It might sound silly, but those of us with a sweet tooth don't want to have to go without our snacks. So I gave a lot of ideas on how I feed my sweet tooth while we're on the road, but still don't have storage and a way to keep things from, say, melting. So in summary, just be thinking about meals like soups, salads, sandwiches, stir fries. It's a lot of S's, I guess. Could have made a riddle with this. Salsa, there's another one. We eat a lot of salsa. And in addition to the rice and beans and stuff, I don't know if I mentioned oats as well. Oats make a good, just all around for breakfast. You could have it for dinner. Just another option. And around here, we do a lot of foraging when we can, especially in the summer. So again, if you want those fresh fruits, get into foraging. If you want fresh greens, get into foraging. In the summer, you can certainly have those things without even having to go to the store. You can be in the middle of nowhere with no refrigeration and be having fresh fruits and veggies. That's what we do. And you can also pick things that you can use in the dehydrator so that you can have them for longer. So foraging is really great for having those fresh things when you're in an off-grid situation, and it helps keep the bills down. If you're interested in the types of meals that we make around here, just check out the food and foraging playlist where I have things we forage, meals we make, and also meals that we cook for our dogs. So feel free to check that out, and thank you for being here. And if you liked the video, just go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see more about this lifestyle, just subscribe to the channel here at Paradise on Pennies. Thanks for being here, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.